Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review today. I'm here to tell you all about the latest album from Demons and Wizards 3, out February 21st on Century Media. This album has 11 tracks, 65 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. This album proves that you don't have to follow a mold, a template, if you will, in order to create a very cool and dynamic record. All you need is talent. It's that simple. If you have talent, you can throw everything out of the window, you can be as creative as you want, and you're still going to get an incredible record from beginning to end. This record proves that notion, that talent alone can really dictate the quality of the record. It doesn't matter how many curveballs are thrown at you, it doesn't matter how dynamic the structure is, it doesn't matter how eclectic the sound is. All of those elements perhaps condition a lesser talented band in terms of how they create their songs and how they create their albums. This band, sky is the limit, and this album proves it. I really felt that they really pulled from the two previous albums into this record. This almost plays out as the greatest hits of the two previous albums. And having said that, I don't mean that they hashed out the same sound, the same structure, the same feel over and over again. And if you want to listen to those albums, go listen to those albums, and you don't need to listen to this album. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I felt listening to this record is that they took a lot of the same condiments, a lot of the same elements, a lot of the same sounds and structures, at least the best that those two records had to offer. They merged those two worlds into one, and they created a very eclectic record that has a very new sound, a very new approach. And that sound, in my opinion, is really the driving force of this record, because not only the sound is reflected on those two previous records, the sound is also reflective of the band's DNA, and that is Ice Earth and Blind Guardian. Those two bands, their sound, their dynamics, really their DNA is really present deeply in this record. It's not alone, or it's not the only driving forces of this record, but they cannot be denied that they're a huge influence on the sound of this record of Demons and Wizards. But I felt listening to the album that there were other forces at play. I really felt a lot of prog rock elements into this album, and even pure rock and roll elements are present in this album. This is an album, like I said, is very eclectic in its sound. It really pulls from a lot of different genres, a lot of different arenas, a lot of different influences, and that allows the album to have a very incredible dynamic structure, which is the next thing that I want to talk about, the structure of the album. This album does not follow a mold, does not follow a concept where you get the album that starts off really strong, really heavy, or really dynamic, if you will, and then it peaks, and then it has a ballad or two in the middle to break the dynamic of the record, and then it starts to go into this crescendo as it reaches towards the end of the album. That's normally the formula that you get with a lot of bands, but that's not the formula that you're going to get with this album. This album does not have a formula. Each song is very different from the previous song. Each song offers something new. They're not afraid of throwing a more ballad type track early on in the record and then throwing another one in the middle. They're not afraid with throwing a song that sounds almost like a rock and roll song, pure rock and roll song, in Midas Disease in the middle of the album. They're just not afraid of throwing different things at you throughout the album, so they don't really follow a path. It's really hard to predict what the next song is going to be like on this record, because every single song throws something different at you, a different sound, a different vocal approach, a different structure, different dynamic, different lyrics. Everything is very unique on a track-by-track basis, making the album very eclectic, not only from a sound perspective, but from a structural perspective, and also from a lyrical perspective, because this is not a concept album. It's not like you're getting a story from the first song to the last song. There are songs here that tie into the story of previous albums, of previous tracks, and some songs tie in together. There's some loose concepts that are tied in together with a few tracks on this album, but this is not a concept album. This is an album that each song lyrically almost stands on its own. So creating an album that even from a lyrical perspective is very dynamic. So you have everything is moving on this record. You have the structure of the album is very dynamic, very eclectic. The sound is very dynamic, is very eclectic. The lyrics are very dynamic and very eclectic. So like I said, it has almost a feel of a greatest hits. So when you have an album like this, normally, if you watch my reviews, you'll hear me saying that, wow, I'm not a big fan of the album because it's so broken. I don't feel a connection between the tracks. I don't feel like this album is cohesive. It's not linear in its approach. It doesn't take me from song to song. So what is different about this record? Because I really love this album. So what is different about this record that allows it to be so eclectic in nature and still work? To me, the vocals. The vocals are the glue that holds this whole album together. I absolutely have no doubt about that. They are definitely the one component that, while changing slightly on a track-by-track basis with a different approach, with a different perspective, is pretty consistent all the way through. I also love the fact that they used choirs on this record in a few tracks. That to me allowed the album to have a lot of strength vocally, a lot of volume, a lot of texture, a lot of presence. They also did incredible things with the vocals as far as if you're listening to the album with headphones, with the vocals coming out of one side or the other side, almost giving a sense of a dialogue within the track. That to me is extremely well done and really represents the lyrics of those songs well. It really elevates the story. It really makes the story come to life. So everything surrounding the vocals on this album is magnificent, and to me that is the glue that holds everything together. Because the guitars are great, the drums are great, the tracks are great, everything is absolutely great, but it's so volatile and so dynamic, it's moving in so many different directions that it's really hard for an album like this to stay cohesive. So to me, using a vocal approach that, while changing, while having some different condiments to it, it's very unique in its style, and by being unique in its style, it stays consistent, or at least it tries to stay as consistent as possible throughout the whole album, unifying a record that otherwise would be just 11 songs that don't belong together, that were thrown in together. As far as songs are concerned, I want to start off with Invincible. This is the second track on the album. One of my favorite tracks on the album. Has a very heavy 70s rock sound vibe to me, mixed in with power metal ballad. These two worlds are coming together in this track, and that to me was one of the things that allowed me to gravitate to this song, because I wasn't really sure which one was winning, which one had the most amount of energy and the most amount of power within this song. It almost felt like an REO Speedwagon song just turned to 11. That's the feeling that I got listening to this track, and I absolutely love it. I love the dynamics that it has. I love the melody that it has. I love how the verses are a little bit more subdued, and then they're a lot more bombastic in the chorus. The chorus really jumps at you. It's really hooky, really catchy, really melodic, and it's really the heartbeat of this song. And I like that sense of waves, that sense of calm, and then the storm, and then calm, and then the storm. I really like the idea of using that sort of dynamic. The vocal track overall on this album is magnificent. On this track is magnificent as well. I really like the strength, the layers, the texture that it has in the vocals, with the simplicity of the lyrics. The two coming together really makes this song memorable and makes the chorus very hooky, very catchy, and very memorable. Next, Dark Side of Her Majesty, another incredible track. This one really uses choirs a lot, and it has a cinematic vibe to it. It doesn't only have a cinematic vibe from the sound perspective, but to me, perhaps more so from a vocal perspective. Because not only you have great vocals on this song, you have choirs, you have a sense of a narrator telling a story. So you have all these different, almost symphonic elements on this track that makes the song feel very cinematic. It gives it a lot of volume, it gives it a lot of presence, it gives it a lot of texture, and it makes it expand. It makes it feel a lot bigger than what it really is. It's a great track. It has a very heavy undertone, and that to me is really important, because overall I felt the song was very melodic, was very upbeat, was very light. So by having a little bit more of a heavy undertone, specifically from the guitars, it really allows the song to come down a little bit more, feel overall slightly heavier, feel like it has a lot more presence. And on the other side, what that does is allows the song to increase that cinematic feel that the track has overall. Really well put together, really well created, and really well presented. Last but not least, New Dawn. I really like the dynamic that this song has from a guitar's perspective. That is what really attracted me to this song. I like the acoustic guitars as the intro, and I like the fact that they don't just use it as the intro and then completely remove it from the track. They allow it to come in the middle bridge and really change your eyesight. It really gives you something else to listen to. It really changes the dynamics of the track. It really gives you a different perspective of this song. It makes the song more complete. It makes the song more robust. It has a build-up effect to it. This is a song that from the beginning, it seems like it's always building towards something. It's very fluid, it moves very well, but it always has this feeling that is moving towards a climatic moment. You just get this feeling of something growing and getting bigger and getting bigger and bigger and bigger with every passing minute of the track. I really like that. It really has a life of its own. It mixes melody and heaviness very well, and the mixture of those two elements, in my opinion, is the reason why it has this crescendo effect to it. and it has so many layers to it. This is a song that has a lot of layers from a musical perspective, but also from a vocal perspective. It just has a lot of things coming at you, very dynamic, very interesting, very dark at times, and that to me comes more from the acoustic perspective, really makes the song a lot dark, a lot more somber. Alright guys, this is it. This is Demons and Wizards 3, out February 21st on Century Media. I personally absolutely love this album, and I think it's going to be an album that's going to resonate with a lot of people. But if you're coming into this record with an expectation of power metal, or even with expectations based on the 2 previous records, I think you're going to do yourself a disservice. Forget about the 2 previous records, forget about power metal, come into this album and just enjoy each song on its own, just enjoy the whole album in general. It's very driven, it's in your face, and it's very eclectic. You're going to get a lot of different dynamics, a lot of different styles and approaches coming at you on a song-by-song basis, but the vocals will hold it all together. Alright guys, this is it for me. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles, on the album. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care guys.